What's the question exactly you're on? I'm sorry.
Ask the question again.
Sure. Were you served with a copy of a notice on September 30th, 2022, that you not alter or destroy or manipulate anything on your phone on September 30th?
I was served an order. Yes, that's correct.
And isn't it true, in another hearing, you explained that on September 29th, the day before you claim you got that notice, you changed phone carriers and changed phone numbers?
And I maintained the phone.
Until you didn't, when you destroyed it a month later by pulling the SIM card out and throwing it away, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you do that in October? Did you destroy that phone?
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you pull the SIM card out of your phone, Mr. Higgins?
Did you?
It's possible that I did. I believe that's how I've testified. Yes.
You testified.
It's possible that if I took it out, that it was either cut or broken.
It's not just possible.
So that,
And that would have been after the date the order was already denied.
Mr. Higgins, I have one question left. One question.
If I did it,
Did you, Mr. Lowley's already standing. I haven't even started.
have a seat, Mr. Lally. Go ahead. Last question, Mr. Jackson.
Quiet, please, quiet.
Mr. Higgins, very simply, and then we're done.
sit down.
Did you remove the SIM card for that phone, drive onto a military base, throw the SIM card in one dumpster and the phone in a different dumpster?
That is not correct.
Did you testify that?
Was your one question, Mr. Jackson?
See you on
All right.
Tuesday.
Folks, that's it.
Welcome. What's up, jerks? Mike Crawford here. We got what you're waiting for. Mazz Media, what's up, brother?
Hey, how you doing, Mike? Thanks for having me.
Oh, man. This was so great, wasn't it?
Oh, it was absolutely outrageously entertaining, to say the least. I just watching this, I'm just like, what in the world? What in the world?
If I did it.
Yeah,
If I did, I would smash it or
What?
cut it.
Yeah, well, I didn't destroy it. I just threw it away. Well, it's discarding your phone, sir. Let's be real here.
Unbelievable. Let's bring up who's everybody's waiting for all weekend. They're like, when are you getting Attorney Bederow on? They haven't. They're jonesing. They're jonesing for Mazza and they're jonesing for Bederow.
Love it.
What's up, Attorney Mark Bederow?
How are you?
Good. What do you think? This was pretty wild.
He's something else. I don't know what to say. I mean, I made a list of notes about this guy. I think he was not helpful for the DA yet again. He comes off as credible in appearance initially, but I think the more you think about what he says, jurors take notes, they think about it. And when the parties get to sum up on his credibility, I think you'll find that a lot of what this guy said doesn't make sense. And it's also just a lot of coincidences that are, unfortunately for him and the DA, identical to the coincidences that the other prosecution witnesses who are kind of under the microscope had the same problem. And, you know, what are the odds of that? They're pretty much zero. And you could go on and on with this guy. His demeanor, I think as the time went on, got worse and worse, very shifty-eyed, looking down. When he wanted to talk about texts and cell phones and whatnot, he got a little bit sheepish. He's looking down, he's looking around, he's got this kind of befuddled, dopish look. Again, I don't think he's particularly bright like a lot of these people, and it's probably, you know, maybe it's all the alcohol, because he's another one of these just sots, apparently. But all kidding aside, when you look at what he had to say about the phone calls, and it's the butt dials again. To me, I know that may not be the biggest thing that stuck out to everyone. To me, it absolutely was the biggest thing that stuck out, because that is now the third witness who is essentially confronted with phone records that are beyond reproach and has the exact same story about how this could have happened, which is, I can't deny the records exist because the records are the records, but I certainly didn't do it. And so it must have been a butt dial. And that's now Brian Albert says he butt dialed Higgins. Apparently, less than a minute later, Higgins, who was sleeping, butt dialed Brian Albert back. And all of this was a couple hours after Jennifer McCabe butt dialed 6 or 7 times in a row. Nobody's going to believe that. It's absolutely ridiculous. And the other issue they have with these butt dials is Have you noticed how the only time these people butt dial is in the immediate aftermath of John O'Keefe's death and prior to anybody finding him officially, around 5 o'clock or whatnot? So how is anybody going to seriously explain that? Then it turns out another coincidence is that him, if I understand the testimony correctly, I didn't go back and look at Brian Alberts, but I think I have this right. How amazing that both of them on the same day, the day before the letter went out about preserving your phones, these two guys, unbeknownst to each other, not communicating with each other, both just happen to get rid of their phones or change numbers, change service providers. And then, we'll find out more on Tuesday what the story is with Higgins, what he really did with his phone. And then you get the
I want to interrupt you there because I think, if I remember correctly, Brian Albert actually did say something about that he told Higgins. Did I remember that right? Did he tell Higgins? Did that come up?
Okay, that may be, which will take away, I guess, the serendipitous nature of them both doing it at the same time. But that's probably worse because Brian Albert would have had knowledge one day before the letter came out. And why would he tell Higgins to ditch his phone? Now, what would be the reason for Higgins particularly? He's not directly linked in these text messages that are going around where they're snooping on the crime scene and panicking about what the cops know. But of course, that he doesn't need to do that because he's hanging out in the police station all day, hanging out with Chief Wiggum, hanging out with Kevin Albert, getting information, although he says specifically, we didn't talk about that. I mean, how anyone could believe that one day after this, that he said he didn't talk to these people specifically about that. No one's going to believe that. But the bottom line is they changed their phones. They got rid of their phones as a way to avoid having those records be examined directly. And then he wants to claim credit for full cooperation by being a federal law enforcement officer and calling his best buddy, who is also a special agent of the ATF, and going to use the friendly neighborhood kiosk for law enforcement to extract his messages with two people, but that's all you're going to get. Now, again, you could believe that if you want to believe that, if he's just an innocent party in all of this. But the problem is, where's the rest of the phone? And it's gone. So what that means is just take his word for it. And the reason why you can't take his word for it is look at all the things that were going on with him on January 29th that he will not admit. And he did a lot of other things that are just not credible, which should cause you to wonder, if he won't admit certain things that are staring at everybody in the face, how you can doubt him about the things that you don't have direct corroboration for. For example, when they were going through his text messages for what probably had to be one of the most painful hours out of a 3-week trial that's been pretty painful at times to watch, but having him read all of these messages, by the time it came down to cross-examination, he wouldn't admit a lot of things that were staring him in the face. He was hitting on her, clearly. She was flirting with him, although I think you can probably imagine a few reasons why to get back at O'Keefe and just whatever. I don't know how serious or not she was being, but the point is, he wanted that and he wouldn't admit that. He got bogged down and, I wasn't being romantic. I was essentially trying to have sex with her, but I wasn't being romantic, which is ridiculous. And some of these messages, when they got to the waterfall where he was being ignored, clearly another word he wouldn't use, when they were having this flirty conversation and then she just ignores him. That's the word. Doesn't acknowledge him.
His little ego couldn't handle admitting that.
He couldn't handle it. And he said, that's not getting ignored. And that wasn't what was going on. And meanwhile, he's sending her messages. Well, as in, I'm right here. Come get me, talk to me. And she didn't do it. And then, of course, the last message, which is really disturbing, which is John's dead. And then he's out of there. And
how about that one?
Well, by the time he got that message, he certainly, I mean, I think I know the answer to that. Whatever you think he did or didn't do, it was sometime during the day after. And if you looked at the rest of the cross-examination about all the communications he had with Brian Albert, with Berkowitz, with Kevin Albert, all these other people, I mean, it seems pretty clear he knew that the target of this is going to be Karen. So he didn't say anything, which makes no sense if he's being a normal person. I mean, this is my friend. I'm flirting with you. I understand you're having a problem. In theory, when she says John's dead, a normal person, if they're having the conversation they're having, one would expect to have a great deal of, oh my God, what happened? I'm so sorry. This is terrible. And he just disappeared. So, you know, all of this stuff with him. I mean, I made a laundry list. I could go on and on, but
Let's talk about that last message though, because like you said, he knew at that point, so he could obviously say, I didn't want anything to do with her at that point because I felt like she was guilty of something. But he's law enforcement. You would think he would ask her a few questions or get her to talk, right?
You know, I look at it a different way. Yeah, he's technically law enforcement, but he's also somebody who's attempting or had been attempting to have some sort of very personal, dare I say, romance. I know that's
Yes.
a word he won't use, but call it whatever you want.
He was into her. He was into her.
He was into her. But what's interesting is they were also talking about relationship struggles, how hard it is to watch kids who are not your own. They were both kind of sharing all of that. So whether he's pissed off about the sexual nature or not, as a, you know, good, decent human being that he projects himself, he got the hell out of there. And you can only imagine at that point, all hands on deck. The wagons have been circled. He's already had the powwow inside Shea Albert, and he's already aware that they've come up with this, you better call the cops back, because McCabe has had this epiphany of a memory about what Karen Reed said. And so he's just moving into cautious law officer mode, which is protect myself. And I'll go find my buddy. I'll dig out these messages, but nothing else. I mean, look, I don't, there was a lot of talk about what a good witness he was. I don't think he was a good witness at all. He wasn't the worst witness I've ever seen, but if the idea is to put out the fire of some kind of cover up, this is the exact opposite of that. The things that he did, it's very suspicious on its face. It doesn't mean he killed anyone. It doesn't mean he knows what happened, but it seems to be that he's up to his neck with the Alberts and McCabe's in all of this weird conduct. And when, you know, the other problem he has is, of course, there's a grand jury transcript in a federal grand jury, which you keep hearing about. And he's trying to give no more than he gave there. And a few times, you know, there were some minor discrepancies in that, but even little things such as this whole thing about 22 seconds, where he didn't just stick with, well, they were butt dials or I don't know, but he goes the extra yard saying, well, you can't have a real conversation in 22 seconds. And by the way, shame on the judge for not letting Jackson count out 22 seconds and sit down and stare at his watch and then decide to get up and say, you're telling me you couldn't have a conversation in that amount of time? That's not argumentative. That was a dumb ruling by the judge. But the point is to have the witness sit there and say, you can't have a real substantive conversation in 22 seconds is stupid. And then I know the jury wasn't there, so this is really for the peanut gallery. But when his lawyer comes in and says, just give me 10 seconds, I'll have this all straightened out like nothing. I mean, the jury doesn't see that. They're never going to know. But it's just, I don't know why anyone would think that this guy is helping, because you knew, look, people had unrealistic expectations about him. He was on the prosecution's witness list. So the idea that he was going to come in and blow the lid as a DA witness, that would never happen. So I think it was obvious he was going to stick to the, you know, I didn't see anyone in the house. I didn't see this. although I thought he might be a little more cautious in his conclusions. And to some extent he was. He saw this mystery man come in, so he says, and he kind of walked away from that. Who is it? Could it have been John O'Keefe?
Could have been Colin Albert too. That was
Could have been. The problem is he knows both of them. So it really isn't a dark-haired mystery man in either one of those scenarios. And by his own friends and stellar witnesses, so the prosecution says, there was no one else in there. So the only other person he kind of left out was Colin Albert. Somebody said Nagel. He did try to suggest it was Nagel, but Nagel, clearly the credible testimony is, never left the car. I mean, that I don't think the jury would give that a second thought. And for him to say it could have been Nagel, if anything, only tells me that he's been prepping with McCabe's and Albert's about, how to explain that. The other thing just jumped out at me about the federal grand jury and whatnot. When he was being asked questions, a lot of them were sustained, but juries hear things. It seems pretty clear to me that when they were asking him stuff on the grand jury, that was Brian Albert that was in the crosshairs. There's no question that they were asking him about his propensity to fight. They were asking him about specific incidents. And then when it comes out, although it gets sustained, but the whole toothpaste doesn't go back in the tube, about Chief Wiggum being scared of Brian Albert. They're not supposed to consider stuff like that, but my God, I mean, if you want a piece of evidence about how a cover-up could work, the police chief is terrified of Brian Albert, and then he does the old odd job. I found the item on his lawn. Let's get him out of this. He's hanging out. Apparently, you have to believe that the defense has evidence that Berkowitz was hanging out in the sallyport around the time that the car showed up, all of that. I mean, I don't know how anyone would think this helps the DA. And the DA calls him ostensibly to provide a motive and literally wastes an hour and a half to 2 hours talking about text messages where they are flirting. But this is right after she came back from the vacation that they claim is the origin of the plot, I guess. And she even mentioned that, he was screwing around with another girl. And of course, if Brian Higgins had half a brain, he would realize what she was doing. She's playing with him. She's using him, not for nothing in the real world. Look at the way she looks. Look at the way Higgins looks. He must have had an idea that this doesn't really fit.
I'll say it because I've seen it when I was in college. It happened to me. She's trying to get her boyfriend jealous.
Yes.
That's all it was. I mean, I was the guy that the girl used to get her boyfriend jealous at one point. I've seen it happen. It happened to me.
Stop acting like that's the only time you've been used in that situation. This has happened to you like 10 times in your life at least.
Really? Oh, it happened to you 10 times? Oh, you said me. No, only once to me.
Okay. But here's the irony of all of this. By the DA putting this all out there, it's clear Higgins is getting strung along and he wants, he senses it. Like, why are you doing this? What do you want? It's like he's wishing it to be true, but he does have that cop skepticism about something's not right here. And, she even said John has cameras. And so the irony of all of this is that with Lally going through this exercise in nothing, all he did from the DA's case perspective is arguably give Higgins a motive to want to confront O'Keefe, or alternatively, O'Keefe a motive to confront Higgins. And if, a meathead's going to meathead, and if there comes a point, suppose O'Keefe got in his face and started hitting. Now, that doesn't mean you're allowed to kill someone, but it turns into a fight and maybe it gets out of control. I don't know that that's the case. I'm not suggesting it is. But if the DA is trying to put out the fire by putting a wet blanket on all of this conspiracy nonsense, why do they keep having these witnesses who are actually just throwing, more kerosene on the fire? So I don't know what they think they've accomplished, and he's not even finished yet. Or I should say the defense is not even finished yet.
Now you brought up Chief Wiggum, otherwise known as Berkowitz or Chief Berkowitz, Berkey, call him. Apparently he's not on the prosecution witness list, even though he found taillight days,
Listen,
later. Is
I'm-
that surprising to you? I know the defense is intending to call him. What do
Of
you think about that?
course. I mean, look, what is one of the largest we got our pieces of evidence if you accept the DA's case? It is a large piece of Karen Reed's SUV's glass sitting in the front yard near where John O'Keefe was found. I mean, if that's true, if that were real evidence and credible evidence and true evidence, then let's be honest, she has a problem. There would probably be no good explanation if you credit that evidence. And this guy is the one who found it. He's the one who needs to explain. I was just driving by one day and lo and behold, there it was. So now I'm going to assume that Massachusetts has the same legal principle that New York has, this concept of a missing witness charge, in which, if the prosecution doesn't call a witness who ought to help their case and has material evidence, and they don't demonstrate why the witness is unavailable to the point where they can't testify, then you could potentially get a missing witness charge. Now, if the defense calls him, it becomes, for all intents and purposes, a non-starter. But if you want to look at the way they're trying this case and you're looking for a sign, a red flag of how incredibly weak and frankly pathetic at times their case is, it's that the guy who found the taillight on the Albert lawn near John O'Keefe's body, and said taillight is a direct match to Karen Reed's car, and the witness is the chief of police. You mean you can't get a better, more credible, ostensibly legitimate witness, and he's not on the witness list. And it's already coming out on cross-examination that, at least it was suggested, that he was feted at his retirement party as being the fixer, the guy who knows how to bury the bodies. Hey, this is pathetic. And you have to wonder if that's one of the reasons they don't want to call him. And I'll also add real quickly, if you think for a minute that of all the things that Brian Higgins can remember, and one of the things that he can't remember at a sign-off party for one of his closest friends, the chief of police, where the district attorney was there, all these other dignitaries are there, and he's giving the toast, and he's making jokes about when you need a body buried, that's your guy, that he can't remember it. That's complete 100% unadulterated bullshit. There is no way that he would not remember that. That's I don't think anybody would believe that. Now, again, it's not really in evidence, because the question was, did you do it? And he says, I don't know. So I hope that from the defense standpoint, that there's a way that they can get that in, because if they can, that's really powerful stuff.
Mazz, you got any comment on any of that?
Oh yeah, I got to comment on a lot of things. I think first of all, Brian Higgins needs to learn how to text women. I think that's one of the big things. He struggles. He struggles a lot. I mean, his text game is about as strong as a 12-year-old, 13-year-old kid, maybe even 8 or 9. Just not doing too well there. It's like, what do you think? What do you think? Karen's just like, I don't know. It's just, this guy struggles. He struggles a lot. And he struggled on the stand, didn't he? He looked nervous. He looked like a giant tomato on the stand with his face just beet red. And he looked nervous when the federal, charges started coming up a little bit about what he was doing and all that. It's just like, what is this guy, what you're doing is you had no authority to be there. And you're basically committed a crime here. And he was so nervous before him and his lawyer talked. He looked so nervous, didn't want to be on the stand, dreading what could possibly happen. And it's just shocking to me that Judge Cannone just sits there while Alan Jackson's just dropping all these federal crimes that he's essentially committed, and just basically brushing it all off like it's nothing, nothing to worry about at all. It's quite alarming, and I think it presents one of the biggest problems in this entire case, is that it's solely all about whether or not Karen Read is innocent or guilty, and it really has nothing to do with some of these other individuals that throughout this entire trial seem like they're the ones that are on trial for murder, and not Karen Read, and just have this constantly just brushed away like it's no big deal. And I was not happy with the way court ended on Friday at all. I think that this whole like shut it down and wait another day was ridiculous. And I thought they should have continued on for at least a few more minutes and a few more questions. And it's just, they have these clocks they want to punch, and they want to be out of there by a certain time. And this is a murder trial. This is not about a stolen hot dog stand on Fifth Avenue in New York City. This is about a murder trial, and they just want to have bankers hours and business hours. And I just think it's absolutely ridiculous. And this guy is, I mean, the more and more I hear from this guy, and the more I learn about this guy, the more and more involved that I start to theorize that he is. And I just question hell his activities at Sallyport, considering evidence was sitting there for days. Was he colluding with perhaps State Police Officer Michael Proctor in some of this stuff, including but not limited to the shattering of the taillight? And we know that Berkey and Higgins are buddies, and we know that it's not too much to say that people like Berkey and Higgins and Proctor at some point must have colluded on this. Of course, that's just a theory, but I sit there and look at these guys, and I'm just like, this is a total disaster. It's a total disaster, and it doesn't speak well to the fact that Higgins had said on Canton Television, like Mr. Bederow here has said earlier, that if you need to hide a body, Burke's your guy. And it was just the most like biggest Freudian slip I've ever heard in my entire life. And it's just exactly what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with people that are looking to basically per se hide a body. And this is the biggest, most obvious cover up in the history of this entire country. And if it's not the biggest one, then it's somewhere in the top 5, 10 to 25, because it's up there. It's blatantly obvious. There's no evidence that Karen Read did anything. There's missing camera footage all over the town. The only claims that they have about Karen Read are he said, she said arguments. There's no concrete data. They have nothing like Cellbrite data, Apple Health data, camera footage that even puts Karen in any of these places at the time. Nothing to suggest that she did it. No camera ring footage to suggest that she backed into John O'Keefe and actually killed him. No footage showing John O'Keefe actually falling on the ground. There's none of that whatsoever. But there's Cellbrite data that shows someone made a Google search. There's entries at the Sallyport that show certain individuals were there. There's footage of two people grab-assing, which was the most action that Brian Higgins has got apparently, at the waterfall bar. And it's just, there's just active energy there that just suggests that these guys were already getting physical, more so with each other, but them being physical with John O'Keefe and trying to attack him later in the day is not far-fetched at all. And it's just, to me, clear as day that this woman is innocent. It's just a shame that the people that are truly responsible for this, that we believe or allege or theorize, are not the ones that are on trial at this time. Karen sits there with great confidence. She started gloating, and I don't blame her, when Mr. Higgins had to get his attorney with him. He's going to need his attorney, and it's all just like Karen always said it was. It's a cover up. It's a frame job. Her attorneys bought into it. Turtle Boy bought into it, and eventually a lot of us bought into it. And it's just basically at this point, you're never going to prove to me that this wasn't a cover up. You're never going to prove to me that this isn't a frame job. It is the absolute monstrosity of BS that we've always thought it is. And furthermore, as the time goes on and this trial goes on, I only believe in it more, not less. And it's just, I'm more and more confident about what's going on. You look at Brian Higgins on the stand. This is one of the biggest things that Mark Bederow said with us on this show and over the weekend, is that this guy, Higgins, is nervous. He's worried. He's not someone that's confident on the stand. He's not someone that believes in his story. He knows he's screwed. He's literally in a silent panic, and it's visible when he's on the stand. He knows that they're going to find him out. He knows that it's possible he's going to be in serious trouble over this. And it's just, the thing is, if Auntie Bev would just be a little bit more fair in the way she would handle Lally's objections and just let some of these through, the defense would be up a couple few touchdowns right now, if not another dozen touchdowns, because it's just they're constantly being hit with penalty flags from Auntie Bev when she sustains Adam Lally's objections, and it's just extremely frustrating. It frustrated me. I expressed this earlier this afternoon on my show, and I'm just tired of it because it's just I feel like this defense can go so much more and do so much more, but there's so many limitations on them all the time against people that are on the stand that are extremely suspicious, completely and entirely uncredible. And there's numerous people that claim that they're friends or acquaintances, but then you find pictures of them. There's people that claim that they haven't been in a fight, be it there's footage of a fight. There's people that claim other things, and then blah blah blah. Oh, we're not talking about the case outside the courthouse, and then pictures emerge of these same people at a particular house with about 15 to 20 cars outside an hour or two later. It's a ridiculous cover up and frame job. It's blatantly obvious. None of us are fooled. The Facebook group's now up to 41,000 people. That is basically jumped about 10,000 people in a matter of a couple weeks. And as the days go by, more and more people in droves are buying into Karen Read being a framed woman. And there's almost nobody out there, if not less people now, that believe that this was actually Karen Read who legitimately killed John O'Keefe, which basically almost no one believes, unless, of course, you're a turtle hater or you're out of your mind or you make incredibly animated videos that appear on court TV. And that's all I got to say for now.
Yeah, well, I'll 100% agree about the growth. We went from 7,000 to over 15,000 in like basically a month. I mean, it's just been amazing. Like, and in 7 days, we've gotten as much traffic, 10% of all of our traffic for like 3 years. You know what I mean? It's like unbelievable growth. So this is bigger and more popular than ever. I want to make one correction. One just point of information. You did say that about Canton Community Television. There was a video. We haven't seen it. We know it got cut. He admitted that he spoke at that event, that retirement party. We haven't seen his speech. We don't know what he said. The allegation is that he said what you said.
Okay.
But he denied it. Higgins admitted that he spoke at that event. We'd never seen the video. It's interesting. I wonder if the defense has the video because they quoted the rumor. They quoted what we heard. But we don't know. I mean, we don't know what he said there. But I would suspect that's exactly what he said because the rumors turned out to be true. You know what I mean? Like they told us he spoke. They told us it was edited out. Higgins admitted that part of it. So
thank you, Mike. Thank you. I appreciate it. I knew that story, but I said it wrong.
Will be hitting us up and saying, I would love for people to hit up the Canton Community Television and say, you need to get to the bottom of this. What actually happened? Right. They said they were going to get back to me. I haven't heard. Mark, did you want to make a comment on it?
I just a few things to follow up on what Mazz just said. I wrote a few notes down. So the first thing about the objections, this is what is, from a lawyer's standpoint, what is so profoundly frustrating about her objections. You have no idea what her ruling is going to be. I mean, every now and then a lawyer will ask a question and you're watching, okay, that's going to get sustained because of this. And that does happen from time to time, but a large amount of her objections, you have no idea whether she's going to sustain it or overrule it. It appears to be completely arbitrary half the time. And then she'll say, ask it another way. And from a legal standpoint, it's asked the exact same way and she'll allow it. So, I mean, it's really frustrating. There's no method to the madness. You mentioned that the phone records and how they deny it. Look, this is all Celebrite stuff. And this has to be the only case in recorded history in which a district attorney's office is so vigorously opposing and fighting to the death on what Celebrite records establish. I mean, this is unprecedented. I've never seen anything like this. And you have to wonder, what does this do for the future of cases in Norfolk County if it's the stated position, of the DA's office that this is not reliable, this and that. Now, they're not what I would call lawyers of conscience, and they probably are willing to argue A in one case and argue the exact opposite in the next case because they don't have that moral compass that prosecutors should have. But a real DA's office would be really troubled by, or people in the office should be troubled by, literally fighting the science for which there's no real basis to do that. They apparently don't care. As far as going back to Higgins, he did admit in front of the jury that he's been consulting with his lawyer. That's going to just invite a lot more speculation. They heard about this other proceeding when you were getting questioned. And it's interesting. We haven't heard any limiting instruction, and it is possible the jury may absolutely draw the conclusion that he was a target of a grand jury investigation, which he may or may not be. I don't know, but that certainly didn't look good. This thing where they ended on the federal crime, whatever it was, 5 CFR, blah, blah, blah. The statute itself of the congressional rules and all of that doesn't really matter. What is astounding is that this guy has been a federal agent for 15 years. And let me put this into English for people. You can't misuse government property for personal reasons, okay? It's no different than taking a government car and running personal errands and doing whatever you want. It's no different than taking a federally issued credit card for business trips and doing what Rachel Rollins did, for example, and the former U.S. attorney and numerous other people, and using it like a piggy bank. He may not know the regulation in play, but for him to say that I had no idea that I couldn't use official government property and use a government person to help me with a non-official business, this and that was somehow prohibited, that's beyond belief. And
It seems illogical, right?
There's
After
no
15
way.
years.
And
Yeah.
There's no way he doesn't know what misuse of government property is. Forget the formal language in the statutes. It's just impossible to believe that.
Got a comment from Ken Weber. He says, I've seen the video. He says, if you need someone to help hide a body, the chief is the one to turn to. Ken, no one's seen that video. So if you have it, please send it to me. It's mjcboston1@yahoo.com. Hit me up. Tell me how you saw that video. I want to know more. Put some more comments too. Let us know. Everyone's looking for that video. So
That would be unbelievable. I mean, that's
get us that video, Ken.
It would be fascinating if that video turned up and was used with Higgins. And of course, if his recollection was refreshed and there's a video, he couldn't deny it. But then he would move into I'm just kidding and it's not anything. But then he's in the Sallyport with the car and Berkowitz and Higgins. And you can't make it up. And then you add in like this nonsense about, this guy, an average day, drinks 5 or 6 whiskeys and it's just nothing. Whatever. Yeah. And then he says, I have to go to the Canton Police Department for whether you want to call it administrative duties, or I have to move 2 cars. He'd rather do that at 1:30 in the morning after a night of pounding whiskeys. Who believes this stuff? It's
the guy said he just wanted to go home, and then he got corrected, and they said, well, you didn't go right home, did you? Where did you go?
Well, I think he testified initially, I made a beeline home, which is actually important language, because that's not just saying I wanted to go home. That's saying, whoosh, I went straight home. And at some point in time, I'm sure he figured out that they have these nasty little things called key cards. And being that it's a secure location, they're going to have every movement you've ever made. And, then all of a sudden the story, look, all of them have this habit of, there's kind of this expression, and I'm going to butcher it because every time prosecutors in the Manhattan DA's office used to use this, it just made my ears want to fall off. But they always used to accuse defendants of admit what you must and deny what you can. Okay. In other words, if it's locked into a record, whether it be a phone record, a video, you have to do it. But if they don't have that, I don't recall, or you deny it. And one of the patterns that you're seeing with all of the Albert, McCabe, Higgins type witnesses is, if there's no concrete proof other than your own common sense, they deny and forget, and they admit what they must, but then even then they try to add it was probably a butt dial, or it was probably this. We didn't talk. Even look at Higgins again with little things. You'd have to believe that Brian Higgins told his female supervisor in the ATF that I'm flirting with Karen Reed, but I never told Brian Albert or any of those people at any time. Is there seriously any chance that any juror is going to believe that? And again, that's not the biggest fact in the world. But when you start wondering, when these people are lying about stupid things with such ease or for no apparent reason, What about the bigger things? And so
Exactly.
to me, he comes off credible only in his initial appearance. But when you look at what we call the cold record, the transcript, the video, you watch it again, you put it together with other evidence, it makes no sense. And to me, the most absurd fact I've heard yet in this entire case was Brian Albert saying, I must have butt dialed Higgins, and then it hung up, and Higgins never got the call, but yet seconds later, he then butt dialed Brian Albert right back.
Wow. Yeah.
Who the hell believes that? And then
Nobody.
3 minutes later or 5 minutes later, Hoss Long to die in the cold.
Exactly. It all happened around the same time.
I mean, you don't have to believe that they can prove who killed. And I know a lot of these people online are running around that, they're never going to prove. They don't have to prove anything. It's like there is the reason they call it a burden of proof. The prosecution has a burden of proof. All the defense has to do is put doubt here, there, and everywhere. They don't have to prove anything. If they have enough reasonable doubt, it's over. End of story. And it's now 3 or 4 weeks through, and there's still no real credible evidence that she's done anything.
We also have email underneath on the ticker. So if people want to send any tips, any investigation tips, anything we should know, like the video from Berkowitz, mjcboston1@yahoo.com. You see it right there on the bottom of the ticker. Please send it along. We had somebody say that they saw that video. I'd love to know where you saw the video. Hit me up. We also, the reason I bring that up tonight is we have like 4,300 watching right now on YouTube. That's amazing. That's a record for our live show with Bederow. It's just keeps going up every time we have you guys on. Wow, that's a lot, isn't it, Bazza? 4,300.
That's incredible. That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable. I broke a record today, but it's not that close.
It keeps, you'll get there. I never thought I'd get over 1,000, dude. It just keeps going up, and then 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. Just crazy. Thank you guys so much for watching. We got questions coming in on the super chat. I'm going to try to keep up as much as I can. One just came up about Higgins. They said, Mark, if Higgins pleads the fifth on the stand on Tuesday, would it be over and Karen walks free?
No, but pleads the fifth on what? I mean, it's kind of an issue by issue thing. He's already started answering questions about his own theoretical exposure for misusing property. He's already answered questions about the phone, the text, and all of that. He's already answered questions about the house, the sallyport, the relationships. So at this point, if he were to stop answering questions on any of those topics, he's not in a position where he can validly assert the fifth without, he can assert the fifth. Nobody can club him over the head and say, you have to answer. It doesn't apply. No one's going to physically make him. But the consequence of pleading the fifth would be to strike all of the testimony that had already come out, which would be a disaster for the DA. And of course, doing that in the presence of the jury, how does that look? So I don't think he will. I don't think it would literally end right then and there and she would walk free. But if any of these people were to plead the fifth after they've already started talking, it would be a mess. And then the real question is whether Proctor just pleads it outright.
Excellent. Well, it remains to be seen if what Proctor's going to do. There are some other wild cards. We were waiting for Higgins. He was a wild card. We saw where that went. There's another comment from Kelly Walsh. Thank you so much, Kelly. She says her dad says this is the biggest case since Teddy Kennedy crashed his car in the water there in Chappaquiddick. Thank you so much. Yeah.
I used to go to Martha's Vineyard all the time. I love it. We used to have, my family had a place in Edgartown. And I do remember the first time that we went to where the Dyke Bridge was on Chappaquiddick and just sat there and peeked in and said, no way that it happened the way he said it. Too shallow. But anyway, I don't know what's going on here, but there's no question in this case, the current case, that there's some form of cover up. What are they covering up? The evidence is not 100% or even close to 100% clear, but they're not innocent in the sense they're covering up something. So It has to be bad, because why would they be acting in the way that they're acting? There's no rational explanation for what these people are doing.
Now, there was an objection that definitely got sustained. I got to know, said, why not say where in Sharon he was? Question rehab. It could be possible. What do you think, Attorney Bederow? We don't know. They brought up Sharon. It got struck. What's going on there?
We speculate, but my first guess was somebody's home, whether it be someone in the state police, Canton police, Berkowitz. I don't know. If that's the case, then maybe the question, look, somebody had said, well, maybe it was Berkowitz's home. That's a good possibility. I don't know. But why not just ask the question, did that interview occur at Berkowitz's home, without mentioning where it was? I mean, look, I can understand why they don't want the public seeing where law enforcement lives, although just the town is not like, 123 Main Street in that town. But I wonder if he had asked the question in a better way and just said, where did you do it? It wasn't at the police station. And in fact, it was at Berkowitz's home or Proctor's home or whatever. That would have been an appropriate question. But the once again, the irony is the judge, being the way she's doing this, it just has everybody speculating about what it means, which is like the last thing you want jurors doing.
Do you think it could have been rehab or even a federal office? Maybe it was the FBI office or something like that they have in Sharon.
Is there an FBI office in Sharon?
Someone said there was a federal office. I don't know if it's FBI.
And that's a good possibility. I mean, look, the guy's going to want every advantage he gets. And let's be honest, when you're a federal law enforcement officer, there is always a feeling of superiority over, the locals. And in this case, the locals are, local yokel buffoons, at least the ones involved in this case. On the other hand, he knows all these people personally. But if he's going into self-protection mode, it's understandable why any federal officer would say, you come to me. Just it's kind of, asserting your turf and whatnot. That wouldn't surprise me. But the way it was left out is just for everyone to speculate. Probably not the best way for the judge to handle it.
Another question that came in from Leah. She said, question, could the Attorney General have put a stop to this? I have no idea if that is a thing they can do.
I mean, in most states, the Attorney General ultimately has, in the pecking order, superiority over any particular county DA's office. But it also can be bad politics. I mean, the safe thing to do is let it play out. And of course, if it turns into a scandal, as it appears it may, then to criticize all the people in Norfolk County and try to politically be that way. On the other hand, if you start trying to kill a prosecution and are quote unquote freeing a murderer, as some people think, that doesn't necessarily make for good politics either. So normally what you see is the attorney generals, governors, those types of people, they tend to be very weak and stay out of this until something has happened. And that's just typical politics. Why make a decision and expose yourself if you don't have to? So I don't think that was ever a thing here.
Now, the proffer, people have been talking about the proffer online. I've been talking about it. It seems like nothing. It seems like there was no deal made. That's my opinion on this.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't understand what a proffer is. A lot of people are talking about it as kind of a living, breathing thing, as if it's an agreement. It's not that. It's nothing more than an agreement to you come in and provide info. You agree to tell us what we ask you, and we agree not to use it again, what you tell us, against you in building a case. That's it. It doesn't mean you're cooperating. It doesn't mean there ever will be an agreement to cooperate. It doesn't mean that you're getting prosecuted. It means nothing else other than we want to speak to you, but we'll grant you limited use immunity for that purpose under the theory. We want you to be forthright and candid. Don't worry. Come talk to us. And he did. That's all it means. So the proffer is nothing more than a statement like he made to the state police. The only difference is that when you lie to the feds, there is a specific crime, 18 USC 1001, that you could be charged with. That's the Martha Stewart crime, if you remember that. And of course, he testified in the federal grand jury which is sworn testimony, and you could be obviously prosecuted for perjury. And it was also very telling, as you heard him acknowledge on cross-examination, that when he testified in the federal grand jury, he was specifically told, do not lie, recognize the seriousness of what you're doing and what could happen to you if you do lie. And it certainly appears, just based upon what you saw the other day, that more facts did leak out from him, whether it was pulling teeth or not, in the federal grand jury than were ever told to the state police or the Lally grand jury, because there is that fear of what could happen to him. Whereas I suppose there's very little fear of what these people in Norfolk County could do. I mean, at many times they all look like the gang that can't shoot straight anyway. So,
the feds are the ones to be afraid of. What about this Matt Kelchi guy who helped? Higgins described him as his best friend.
I mean, look, I think they would talk to him. They would try to proffer him as well. You know, and you go down that path. Could they have put him in a grand jury? Would they prosecute him? No. They might use what's called the Office of Professional Responsibility for federal agents, where they get internal discipline. But I mean, I don't want people to get too excited. If you think the guy is going to get prosecuted because his best friend said, look, I don't know how to pull off. Again, if you're accepting what they say is true, I just want to pull off a couple of chains of text messages. They could be important to a murder case. I don't know how to do it. Can you help me do it? And he says, come here. And they use their little doohickey that helps them do that. He's not getting prosecuted. I'm talking about
Kelch. I hope not. I feel bad for him.
No, but again,
his career might be damaged, though. His career could be damaged.
Yes, you're not supposed to do that. And of course, the real question is, do you believe them? I mean, and certainly Higgins, do you really believe that he extracted those messages, which he knew wouldn't harm him per se, and then decided to switch his service and phone number the day before the letter because my good friend Brian Albert told me that's what I should do? I mean, it's none of this makes any sense. So again, I'm not assuming that they believe him, and that's probably part of the problem and part of the investigation, that whatever they're looking at. But I don't think Kelchi is going to get in any real trouble because he used what is definitely poor judgment. But again, we don't know how nefarious it is either.
Mike, just real quickly, Leah Baker had a super chat that we had skipped.
I'm looking.
Orange.
I don't see it. Sometimes they
read
don't
it?
come up. I don't see it. Sometimes they don't come up.
Okay. You want to read it off? I can see it right now.
Oh, now I see it.
Oh, you got it? Okay, great. All right.
You want to read it?
Sure. Leah Baker says this investigation wasn't incompetence. It was purposely botched. Look at Microdot's comparison. Good cop, bad cop. Proctor, Tully, and Morrison knows how to conduct an investigation. And that's exactly right. I remember that video. That was the video where they talked about them, where they took how they reacted to the investigation at 34 Fairview. And then they had a video comparing how they had conducted a investigation about another incident that had happened. I believe it was a murder case, and they were all over it. They were totally, I mean, they were like right on with what they should be doing in terms of an investigation. They were there. Michael Morrissey spoke on scene in that video, and they were totally far more involved with the proper procedure, as that, they had people on scene investigators. They did better crime scene investigation there. That was a pretty big video by Microdots. That was a really good one. And it was an incident that happened after, I don't know how much longer after, maybe in 2023 even, but it was very, very notable to see how, and then they kind of compared like what they did at that scene, but what they did not do at this scene. And it was very, very notable. And it makes you really just look at it and be like, wow. They blatantly dropped the ball, and as far as I'm concerned, purposely. But that's just my allegation or speculation, of course. So,
Amy jumped in and said, Amy in Boston said she looked it up. She said Sharon has an FBI office. Maybe. That's what
I think that makes perfect sense. So I would modify my I mean, this is all speculation. So in some ways I shouldn't be doing this, but I would assume that that's yes. And that of course the judge doesn't want to mention an FBI investigation. So
Exactly.
let's leave it at that. Although the cat is out of the bag. I mean, she's lost, but this is the problem. I mean, she
Yeah.
can't make up her mind whether to go back and do this or allow this or not. And the lid is blown off this, but what about that? I mean, it's becoming a circus. This is a terrible trial for the world, or at least the country, to see how the criminal justice system works, because this is not how trials usually go. And this is such an interesting case, and it's kind of pathetic in many ways that everyone has to see what a joke trial on many levels this is, because it's so serious. You know, someone obviously is facing potentially life in prison, and a good man is dead, and you have DAs doing it the way they're doing it. And it's just, there's something just overall really icky about watching this whole thing.
We had another super chat that I'm missing. I can't find it now. I saw it earlier. They were asking, will John O'Keefe get justice ever? What do we all think? Yeah, probably not.
I mean, justice for him would be defined as the person who's responsible for his death, assuming it's a crime, being held accountable. And the reality is this, don't shoot me for this, but go through this. Let's assume hypothetically, I'm not saying I believe this, but just hypothetically, if Karen Reed did this and did it as the DA alleges, she's not getting convicted. Okay. Because I think the reasonable doubt here is suffocating, the amount of reasonable doubt. So if she did it and gets away with it in that sense, that's not justice for John O'Keefe. If she's innocent, which she may very well be, and a lot of people think, and certainly appears to be not guilty, and very possibly even likely, in my view, innocent, then nothing just gets done if she gets convicted. And if she gets acquitted, that's still not justice for John O'Keefe, because then somebody else got away with it. And if someone else is responsible, the only way he'll ever, and his family will ever, get real justice is if that person is held accountable. And at least at this point, it doesn't look like that's going to happen either way, whether Karen Reed did it or someone else did it.
Now, I could see two scenarios where it could happen somewhat, obviously, is through the feds. The feds, if they come up with something. But also, what happens if Morrissey gets voted out of office? Maybe they'll come back 2 years later and charge the real people. Could you see something like that happen? Or is it just too difficult?
No, that's an interesting point, because, murder doesn't really have a statute of limitations. So you can always revisit a cold case, they would call it. And if there is evidence to get someone, you can. Now, as far as the feds turning the screws and doing this and that, at least at this point, it's apparent that if Higgins knows something that he hasn't cracked, and I don't know what he knows or doesn't know, but if he knows something really bad, then he perjured himself at this trial and in the state and federal grand jury and has not yet cracked. So in order to, if that were the case, to get him or get anyone else, it sounds like they're going to need more.
Got a lot of super chats coming in.
Can I just jump in on that? So this is my thoughts. I think that what you have here is you have an extremely tainted crime scene now, because this crime scene was not organically surveyed and noted and documented, and all that evidence is thrown out. So I think basically from really from a local level, or even state level, there's nothing to incriminate the perpetrators of this on. I think that basically what it all comes down to, and Mike, you suggested this, was a federal investigation where basically they'd have to incriminate somebody based on some kind of text messages or communications or any kind of data that they acquired. It would have to be almost like a federal takedown. That's just my personal belief. But I think that basically on a local level or state level, it's such a tainted crime scene that they never conducted everything properly, that a lot of stuff gets thrown out, that even if you did have suspects on the stand, it may get thrown out for lack of ability to convict them. And I just think that ultimately, like you said, Mike, it's a federal, it'd have to be a federal thing. I just wanted to get that out there.
I still think they could do a state case later, based on the federal stuff. Like if at least investigate it, like reopen it, just
Right.
see where it goes. I mean,
Well,
we don't know.
I think they owe that to his family. If
Yeah.
it's clear that this trial is a miscarriage of justice, that they at least owe an honest investigation wherever it leads. But I think Mazza makes a very good point. The crime scene never was preserved. I mean, the
Yep.
crime scene was lost at 8 o'clock in the morning on January 29th of 2022. So the only way they could even bring a case at this point are flipped witnesses, alleged admissions by people, or text messages and things of that nature. But in terms of the science of the case, that's been gone for years.
We have a lot of super chats coming in. Thank you so much, everyone. Charlie Lynn just gifted 5 Young Jerks memberships. Thank you so much. I'm gonna try to do my best. I'm just gonna post some. Yeah. Do you see any good questions in here? There's comments too. Do you see any Mazza that you're looking through them?
I'll keep a look on it. Yeah, you're kind of like the post office at Christmas time, Mike, with tons and tons of Christmas cards needing to be dispersed.
It is. It's like, which ones are the questions? I don't want to miss them because people get mad. And I think we kind of answered a bunch of them. People are asking about, about what we were just talking about. Here's one. Big Red's mama says that there's a mistrial and the Commonwealth tries the case again. Can the defense use the previous testimony of the Commonwealth witnesses and add new information to challenge their inconsistencies? I think we kind of just answered that, didn't we?
Well, it's a little different. I mean, if there's a mistrial, there will be so much pressure at so many levels of the public, like us sitting here, and also at a government level of varying degrees, saying, no, you're done, it's over. And it would become a huge campaign issue. It would probably inspire at least one, probably more people to run for Norfolk DA and say, enough of this nonsense. So I'm not convinced that there would be a retrial, just because the pressure would be off the charts against it. But in the event that there was, yeah, the previous testimony will all be used. It's sworn testimony. It's been subject to cross-examination. It could even be directly admissible, the transcript, if some of these witnesses became unavailable, if they passed away or just became otherwise unavailable. So yes, I mean, you would not literally put the first trial down the memory hole like in the Orwell novel. No, everything would be existing and be fair game, and it would make it an even larger advantage for the defense, because it would just be another round of sworn testimony and whatnot to go over with all of these people. So yes, they could definitely use what's being created now at a second trial.
Another comment. They're asking if the McAlberts are setting up Higgins as the fall guy eventually. What do you think?
No, I mean, I think they're probably not as aligned as they were. I mean, for Higgins to apparently, I mean, I'm going to assume it's true, or Jackson wouldn't have said so. For Higgins to say that even the chief is afraid of, Brian Albert, that's certainly not an act of loyalty. That's certainly some way of attempting to curry favor with the feds. That certainly suggests some way of trying to tip off that I'm not as bad as those people and that sort of thing. Also attempting to talk about a fight between where he fought the cop that they drove home with, all that kind of stuff. So I don't think that that's really a sign of them being aligned, but I don't know that why the Alberts and McCabe's at this point would set up Higgins as a fall guy, not because they're happy with him, but the simple fact they've already testified in this trial unequivocally. Nobody in that house had to do with anything. And John O'Keefe was never in the house. Stop looking at us. We're innocent. You're scumbags for doing all these terrible things to us. Leave us all alone. And if they were to now turn and blame it on Higgins, all they're going to do is make even more people think that they're involved in something very bad.
Question. Why did Higgins over-explain details about his plow?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I'm still fascinated with the whole Jeep thing. And now maybe I missed this when we were hearing about the Jeep before, but when he says the Jeep is basically in front of the mailbox, like the back end of the Jeep, And this is funny because when I was in Massachusetts this weekend, I was eating, I told you guys this, I was eating someplace in Milton that we often go to, and it wasn't that far. And I said, you know what, I'm just going to take a 5-minute drive. And I drove by this house, and that area from the mailbox to the flagpole or whatever, I mean, I didn't stop, I didn't take pictures, I just drove down the street. It's not very long. And the idea that the Jeep would have been there, the potentially the other truck that came that was picking up people, whether it was in the driveway or not, would have been there. But if her SUV was there, where is she backing up from, like 2 houses down? And you know, I'm saying, like, there's not
I
enough
know.
space for
There's-
No,
all.
there's not.
I don't understand that. The other thing I don't understand, and this was really shocking, I don't want to get off point, but that front lawn is tiny.
Yep.
It's really, really, the pictures do not do it justice. And when you see the bedroom windows upstairs and the flagpole, the fact that the jury went to that crime scene is a big plus for the defense. Never mind the car. Looking at that, the fact that the allegation that these people never heard anything, I got to tell you, that's really hard to believe just from
Yeah.
the closeness.
Right.
Lots of super chats coming in. I'm just trying to keep up with them. Millions of dollars to law enforcement annually, and we get garbled dispatch audio. Do you think it was tampered with? I sure do.
Who knows?
I think they were, but they may even have been communicating on different frequencies too. I'm saying that and theorizing about some of the folks that are the powers that be in this thing, that if they were doing radio communication at any point on some different frequency. I just want to jump in a quick question for Mark Bederow. A few of the people listening to my show earlier, we talked about asking Mark this. Mark, my question for you is going to be, how often does a witness on the stand have an attorney present?
It's pretty rare.
Okay.
I can't say it's never happened. You see it. Sometimes you see witnesses who are potentially they're going to testify in a manner that is directly contrary to prior sworn testimony, so that there is a theoretical likelihood of perjury because it's either an A or B is not consistent under oath. But the idea that you have, in essence, at least Higgins's attorney was in the courtroom, McCabe's attorney was in the courtroom, Brian Albert mentioned that he had an attorney. Not that I'm ever against anyone consulting an attorney. That would be a very unattorney-like statement to make. And, I wouldn't, for nothing else, just draw an adverse conclusion against somebody who has an attorney. But the idea that the DA is bringing a case where multiple key witnesses, prosecution witnesses, have to have attorneys to make sure that they don't step into legal doo-doo, if you will, is extraordinarily rare and very emblematic of another one of the flaws in the case. I mean, these are obviously not great witnesses. The feds were dealing with them and wanted to interview them. They clearly had problems with their story. There is no way the feds believe them about the electronic stuff. I mean, forget it. They're not going to go anti-Celebrite and all that kind of stuff. They clearly don't believe the car accident story based upon their own experts. And I'm sure that everyone who is a professional investigating this is also deeply disturbed by 45 pieces of plastic of shatterproof substance. That, I'm not an expert on this, but I know enough to know that if something is shatterproof, it doesn't shatter into 45 pieces on the front lawn. And so there's all these just kind of red flags that I'm sure that the feds don't believe these people. I don't know where it's going to end up, but that's why they all have lawyers. They all got called in. Some of them may have spoken to the feds, some may not have, but it appears they did get at least forced into the grand jury and make statements that are not consistent. And if they're ever exposed for what they said in the federal grand jury, and that turns out to be false, and it's material, as you know, in other words, if it relates to what I heard Karen Reed say, or the phones that I didn't delete, or the Google searches that I didn't make, if that can be proven to be false, I would not be surprised if that did result in charges, because that is
Huge.
they'll treat that as obstruction. They'll treat that as a 1001 violation. They'll treat it as perjury. Doesn't mean they're ever going to prosecute a murder case. They're probably not, to be honest with you. But I would think that if there is perjury going on here and they link it to some of these witnesses, some of these police officers, people in the DA's office, I don't know, that they would unleash the hounds and round them all up and make an example out of this. And that may very well be, at the end of the day, the best justice that John O'Keefe ever gets. Not that that's what his family wants, but I'm sure there's a small win in a sense of something if that were to happen for them ultimately. But right now, I think they all think that she's guilty, just based upon the way this has been portrayed and what they hear, and the way that some of these witnesses saddled up to them right away. And started these groups with them. Really unseemly stuff, by the way that all happened with McCabe, and always being in control of everyone. That seems to be the MO of these people. They're always immersed in everything and monitoring and keeping tabs on everything. It's quite chilling, actually.
Who needs Big Brother when you got Jen McCabe around? 5,100 people watching right now. That's amazing on YouTube alone. Thank you so much, everyone listening. Just had a ton of super chats coming in. Here's a question. Jen says, on Tuesday, do you think we'll hear about the new discovery that was received, medical records and videos?
I mean, I guess it depends on how material it is or not. Prosecutors have this nasty habit of dumping meaningless records because look at us, we disclose what we have, we're forthright, we're honest, so here you go. And a lot of times it's not relevant. I don't know what these medical records are. I don't even know that they relate to Higgins. And frankly, I don't know what the hell they're doing disclosing this 3 weeks into trial, and I don't know why that's a thing. I don't know why that's okay. I don't know why the defense, frankly, isn't jumping up and down, screaming and yelling. I mean, there are things they know, but this is the kind of stuff I can tell you in New York that lawyers would be jumping up and down, screaming mistrial if any of this stuff is relevant. I mean, the discovery statutes are very clear about the timing of disclosure, and it's not in the middle of trial, unless these are brand new records that they could not have produced. You know, what if they're medical records from 2 days prior, something like that? But that's hard to believe. The video appears to be enhanced dash cam video. That's all well and good, but I'd want to know, when did they do that? If you did that previously, why don't we have that? And why are you doing it mid-trial? I mean, don't these people prepare for trial? Why would you wait until now to enhance the dash cam video?
Yeah.
I mean, who does that as a prosecutor? This is just profoundly stupid, and something stinks here. I don't know what it is because I don't know what the records are, but at least at this point, the defense hasn't uttered a word about it. I mean, I would be having a half a stroke about something like this, but in all fairness, we don't know what the records are and what the circumstances are.
Dag Nabbit came in with another super chat. Says, what is the process for the prosecution to get Karen's angry voicemail and text in front of the jury? Does it come in through a witness?
Well, it's not going to come in through the person that she sent them to because that person is deceased. But that's not that difficult. They could call, if they're Verizon texts and messages, you could call a Verizon representative or whatever company, and you show them the records, and this phone account belongs to somebody named Karen Reed at this address with this phone number. You have all this other evidence of what her phone number is. And in essence, you would only be able to establish that the text came from her phone. You may not be able to literally establish that she sent them, but I mean, no one, I think, is going to, unless there's a reason to doubt that she sent them. As far as the voicemails, if you could show that they originate from her phone number, same thing. If you wanted to get really crazy, I don't think they're going to do it in this case. You could get a voice recognition expert and say that's her. But I think if it comes from her phone and it's, associated to her phone number and her phone records show a call that matches the time of the voicemail, that it's bottom line, it's not that complicated. It's probably a phone company type person. If you can't have somebody like you had Higgins basically saying, Karen Reed sent me these messages. But the defense wouldn't dispute it anyway. I mean, I don't think they're running away from the fact that she probably was angry at him for something, but they just dispute that led her to run him down right after. You're silenced, Mike.
They want to know what between the feds, if they investigate the working of the Mass State Police and the Kent PD, when they might do that.
I think that would be part of it, only because if you look at all the crazy corruption here, or alleged corruption, I should say, at least at this point, there's a reason why Brian Albert would be protected, and he would be protected because he's a cop. And the best evidence of that is Proctor's text messages that I guess we're going to see in the defense case, where he said, don't worry about that guy and she'll kill herself and all of that. But yeah, if you're looking into some kind of crazy cover up, these Alberts and McCabe's can't do this without complicity on the part of law enforcement, whether, I'm not disparaging any one particular individual, but you would clearly be looking at Proctor, his partner, Lank, Good, the list could go on and on. I mean, there's all kinds of things. Everything that the law enforcement did in the first 24 to 48 hours of this case is wrong. Everything. I mean, in terms of following protocol and how you do things, is there a single thing that any initial Canton police officer or state police trooper did right? Probably not. I mean, so I would think for sure that they would be looking into it. And then, not that I'm up to date on Canton and Norfolk County politics and public events, but I am aware that there is this other issue where the cops, essentially, their conduct may have led a mentally ill young girl to kill herself because of their atrocious conduct and having improper relationships with her. So, I mean, at some point, whether it was the state police or Canton, I could be screwing that up. The point
It's Stoughton, actually, but
Okay.
it happened in Canton. There were Canton police
Okay.
that investigated, but it was Stoughton police mostly.
Got it. All right. Well,
up
thank
with
you
our
for
group
correcting me. That's important. I don't want to throw darts at the wrong people, but you look at all that kind of stuff that's going around in that area, and yeah, that's what the feds do. I mean, they investigate official corruption, and there's no question that their interest in this case would generate from the corruption angle, not how do we solve a murder. The feds are not in the business of prosecuting state murder cases. They don't do it. What they do is prosecute corrupt state and local officials.
Which brings us to this question, which I think we kind of did answer earlier, but they want to know, do you think these people, Albert, McCabe, Proctor, will ever see time?
I don't know. I mean, it really comes down to a judgment by most likely the federal people as to whether there is conclusive proof that they lied under oath about a material fact. I think, I mean, Proctor, look, the smartest thing he could do is just take the fifth and go home, and whatever happens to the case happens. But at least right now, of all of these witnesses, I would say the one that's in the most legal peril is McCabe. She gave unequivocal, absurd testimony about the text messages, the Google searches, and doing things. And when you sprinkle it with all the other stuff that she was involved with, which just shows what she was trying to do, from her perspective, she better be damn confident that the DA's technical experts are good enough, at least, to make people not feel 1,000% secure that she Googled the 227 and deleted it and deleted all these other things. But in terms of just open and shut, black and white, her testimony may be completely destroyed based on very reliable forensic Celebrite type evidence. And if that's the case, then I would think she's going to have to pay her lawyer a few more shekels in the future because she's going to, that's not going to just go away so fast. But is that really the case? I don't know.
Tom Fitzgibbons says, could the defense just not even bring their case and let the prosecution fall on their sword? What do you think? Will that happen?
It won't, only because the defense made a calculated gamble in the opening, which is they previewed their case. And this is a thing at a trial for a defendant. It is always one of these. Do you promise anything? What if the case is so crappy we don't need to, but we've told the jury all this stuff? Now they've promised that they're going to destroy Proctor with these messages and that they're going to have evidence that there was a fight in the house and that John O'Keefe was in the house. The risk is if they don't produce that, the jury may think, what are these guys? Again, you need to be credible. They made a lot of promises. If they didn't open on this and they gave a more generic opening, a reasonable doubt, don't be judgmental, that kind of canned opening, if you will, then you could make a pretty strong argument, at least up to this point, that many defense lawyers would say, we're not putting on a case. This is a straight reasonable doubt acquittal, that they have no case. Their witnesses don't make any sense, and goodbye. But no, they're going to have to deal with all these issues. And again, given what the DA's theory is, they're going to call the federal experts who are going to say that that's not a car accident. How do they not do that at this point? They're going to call a medical examiner to poo-poo the DA's medical examiner. They're going to call a Celebrite expert. They're going to call they have to at this point. They're going to call the plow driver. That to me is a big one, who's going to say nothing was there and then the car was there. But I'm sure there was no body that first passed through when I went by. So I don't think there's a very high chance at all that they're not going to put on a vigorous, long case.
Excellent. There's a follow-up from Dag Nabbit. They wanted to ask about if the phone company rep would sit on the stand and read the text aloud like Higgins did.
Well, you could do it any number of ways. Look, the way Lally did it, my God. Once they're in evidence, you don't have to publish everything to the jury. Then you can. There are certain things that you may want to emphasize. But most lawyers, especially given how this case is dragging, would say, let's have Higgins explain generically that there was some flirty banter and this and that, and then maybe have him read a few of the important ones, as opposed to Lally saying, why don't you read 60 pages of text messages and just continue that for that period of time. If they call a phone company rep, they'll probably just do the same thing. Yes. Now, from the DA's standpoint, if they have Karen Reed ranting and raving, screaming how much I hate you, and I'm speculating, I don't know what the messages say, and I wish you were dead, or I never met you. Those are ones you would publish and have somebody read. Obviously, those are very.
And you could have the state police do it too, right?
You could. Yeah. Once they're in evidence, anyone can do it who's proper to do it. And one of the investigating cops could theoretically do that. But you don't want, if there are 60 pages of text, you don't do what he did the other day. That's just because also, especially by the way, when it's a dud, you might not want to draw emphasis to the fact that these text messages are just them kind of playing footsie, but nothing's really happening. And talking about him, what are you drinking? And we're getting wasted. And it's just how this helps them is beyond me. It's just seems really dumb to do it that way.
It's a good question for Mr. Meathook. He wanted to get an example of the best judge you've ever argued a case in front of and why.
Well, it wasn't in Massachusetts for a much simpler reason. I don't practice in Massachusetts. So, although you can get admitted pro hoc vice, like I'm sure Jackson is for this case. But the best judge, tell you the truth, I like the judge I'm on trial now in Queens. Good demeanor, smart, but there's good ones and bad ones. But if I was kind of grading this one with amongst the ones that I deal with, I definitely put her in the bottom 20% or so. She's not very personable. She seems to be constantly irked and just kind of, yuck personality wise, which just makes for a miserable experience for the lawyers who are probably stressed out of their minds anyway, all of them. Her rulings to me don't make any sense, as we talked about, not because she's always wrong, but she ought to be more predictable, and she's not. I think she made a huge mistake with all of that harassment, Turtle Boy stuff. And I think she's cutting off the defense way too quickly. I thought what she did at the end of the other day was very Bush League. And by the way, they need to pick that up immediately, as if she didn't say what she said, and go right back to that. You don't stop grilling this guy about chucking his SIM card in one basket and the phone in the other. If that, they're asking that question because they must have some evidence of something, I'm assuming. So you keep doing that, and you don't get deterred by the judge. And these guys are pros, and you can tell they don't seem to get very deterred from what they're doing. So I assume they'll pick right up with that.
It's another one of those comments from someone that seems to know more than us. So Vincent, if you have this, send it to us. He says there is video of the Sallyport at State Police Barracks. It shows agent actually breaking the taillight. Higgins, many others are on the video.
Look,
send it to me. Send it to me, Vincent.
If that's the case, that should be sent to you. That should be sent to the federal government.
Exactly.
That should be sent to Michael Morrissey. That should be sent to the New York Times. That should be sent to the Boston Globe. If that's true, if that's true, that would be Higgins would be indicted for perjury.
Case, right?
Yeah. Send it to my email address. It's on the ticker on the bottom.
Is different than the Berkowitz tape. If this is true, and I don't,
I'm gonna check my email right now because I want to. Maybe we'll bring it up on the show. mjcboston1@yahoo.com. If you have that video, Vincent, send it right now. We'll play it on the show.
I'm not sure why that would be on video. You'd think they deactivate the cameras, but whatever. If that's true, then I would say the case is over. Because here's the other thing. My understanding of polycarbonate, with the caveat that I'm not an expert, it doesn't just, you can't just break it. You have to put spray, or you have to prep it. So it would be one thing if they broke it, by accident, which is still bad because how did it end up on the lawn? But if there's video of like spraying and prepping and rubbing materials and tapping on it, then they're all going to get indicted if that's true. And they're all going to get that's prison. Okay. That's that's Karen Reed owning all of Norfolk County and half the state of Massachusetts, if that's true.
Yeah.
You know what? People are. What is this?
Why would nobody have said this before, though? This is, Now, where's the Sallyport video from the Canton Police Department? Another one of these. Admit what you must.
40 minutes, whatever it was.
They're missing the video of the car in the Sallyport. They're missing the library video where, in theory, it could go by. And you know what else? They're missing that ring video at John O'Keefe's house. Now they're implying that she did that. Maybe the state police did that because it shows when she pulled in a much better view of the back light, looking fine. I don't know. But I've never seen a case where the DA goes forward with all this missing video, butt dials, phone records that don't make sense. This is insanity that they go forward, whether they think she did it or not, when they have this many integrity problems with the prosecution.
Incredible. It's the most outrageous thing I've ever seen. At least I've just never seen so much missing footage in my life. It's absolutely nuts.
And it's not just you. I've been doing this for 25 years and seen a lot of trials and prosecuted and defended. I've never seen anything like this.
Wow.
But there are so many coincidences that just all seem to protect the McCabe's, the Alberts, or work to their benefits. This thing, something is clearly wrong here.
Yep.
And that's all it's going to take for the jury. That's why I'm telling you.
Reasonable doubt.
That's right. All they're going to say is, if this thing stinks and we don't get answers, I'm not doing her dirty and sending her to prison for the rest of her life because, Adam Lally says, well, she did it, and Chief Wiggum found the glass on the lawn and there's no dog DNA. I mean, that's not going to do it.
Yep.
Apparently, we have some enhanced video. That's what they're talking about from
There we go.
Aussie Insider, who told me I could play her videos on the show. So you guys want to see what they're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to turn down the sound just because she's got some kind of music on the background. I don't know if it's copyrighted. I don't want to get whacked. But let's take a look at this and see what it looks like. I got like 10 messages right now on the email. Everyone's hitting us up. It's funny as hell. I guess
Like
you
the
guys.
Unsolved Mysteries hot tip line.
Yeah, they're sending me stuff that Turtle Boy posted months ago about the Canton retirement party for Chief Berkowitz. I don't think there's anything new in there because we played the same thing. How can I get this video up? Hold on one second here. I'm lost. It's gonna take me a second. There we go. I'm going between screens. I'm confusing myself.
That's all right.
I'm
Do
on
what you gotta
different
do.
browsers and
Yeah.
all right, here we go. One second.
At least you don't have to disable any cameras, Mike, or shatter any taillights. So it's a lot simpler than that, at least.
Yeah. Should be simpler than this what I'm doing right now. Of course the commercial comes up too.
Yeah, it's always my favorite part. Good old
Yeah.
commercial.
Yeah.
The ones you can't skip, those are the worst.
It shouldn't be that difficult, but it is right now. Hold on
Yeah.
one second. Almost there.
Someone goes in Canton, are there more sidebars or wet bars? I don't know about that one, but well, technically the sidebars are in Dedham. Oh, here we go.
We
Good
can
old
talk too
Sallyport.
because there's no audio. I'm turning the audio down because it's just like a weird.
That's her car where? In the state police? Or Canton?
This is the Sallyport in Canton.
Okay.
Brazilian girl has a crush on Mark Bederow. She can listen to him all night. That's awesome. Well, good for you, Mark.
Is there a timestamp on this? Like when this video is supposed to be?
I don't see it.
Yeah, there's Karen's SUV and then some kind of classic police car in the background there.
Yeah. This is what they call enhanced video, by the way, in
I know,
Canton.
right?
Yeah, right.
This is about grade C garbage video.
I think she enhanced it. I think the YouTuber enhanced it actually.
Got it.
This is the Zapruder footage level quality here from 1963. It's hard to believe this wouldn't be in better quality. Either way, enhanced or not.
Is that Whitey Bulger in the back? I mean, that's what it looks like. It's from the 70s. It looks like the Lancaster garage at North Station with Whitey and Stephen
Could
Fleming.
you imagine if this was the 1970s video and they pasted
That's what it looks like right now.
Car?
This
No.
reminds me of Stevie and Whitey, like in the 70s when they got them in
A little
the.
more recent than the camera they used for the crime scene.
Seriously, yeah.
Aussie Insider says no timestamps on this in the comments.
Oh, how convenient.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering what we're looking for. When the smash supposedly
Am I supposed to be looking at the taillight? I can't really tell what's.
I know,
what's
right?
Taillight.
It's just to the right of that woman's face in the blue glove right there, the
Right.
tail light right there in silver. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
that's
right here.
taillight.
I can't tell what the level of brake is based
I
on.
know.
Yeah. It looks cleaned out on the rear side, but then on the side level, it's red.
Right.
Most of it, yeah.
Yeah, this is Aussie Insider too. We're using her video.
Yep.
Okay. But this is supposed to be from when exactly? This is before the video went missing or after when it kicks in and it's already, I'm assuming that the missing part comes before this, right?
I don't know. Now it's stopped. Maybe she's talking. There it is. There is a time span down there. You see that? 9:51. 9:51:21.
Can't see it. The scroller
can't
might
see
be
it?
over. Yeah, it might be the scroller that's over.
Can I
This
take
would
that off?
probably.
Oh, there, I see it. I see it now. Your scroller went by 9:51, 9:55. There it is. Sallyport front wall interior.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What
no, I see
day,
it.
what day is this though? That it can't be. They didn't have the car at 9:55 in the morning that day.
No, it has to be the next day.
Yeah. They left the bag of Solo cups just unattended and
Yep.
opened and unlabeled and all that stuff for days. Is there any date on this? No, I don't see any date at all. Someone just said it's from the 30th. A couple people are saying it's from the 30th.
Here we go.
Well, they're certainly playing with the light.
This is when Berkey got his piece.
Well, didn't the guy lieutenant testify that he basically broke it?
Yeah. Maybe that's him. Is that Wanless? I don't know. It's very interesting.
It looks like they're like somebody just said they're just going to take the whole thing.
Yep.
Now, when did they claim to find all those pieces on the lawn?
Well,
You mean
you're not talking about Berkowitz. You're talking about the state police.
the initial?
Yeah, I mean, I'm saying obviously you need to have
The state police, they found him on the lawn right after they towed her car back to Canton.
Yep.
Basically that like within an hour.
And it should be noted that when that vehicle was being towed away, the taillight was practically intact and lit up, but yet they had found taillight on the ground at the same time, which is extremely, in my opinion, shocking.
doesn't
What are
make
your be on the taillight tonight? People are it's funny what they send us. I don't know. What are your final thoughts on just what went on in court on Friday with Higgins and what to expect on Tuesday morning?
Is that for me
Media,
or
you go
well, for me?
first. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think it's David Yannetti picking it up. I think David Yannetti's going to come out swinging with the energy. I don't think it's going to be any drop off from Alan Jackson. David Yannetti is an extremely imposing defense attorney, and he knows exactly how to ask the right questions. He's been on top of this since the get-go with Karen, and I expect that this is going to be a pretty explosive cross-examination. I think we were just starting to see it scratch the surface in the last 30, 40 minutes of that cross on Mr. Higgins on Friday, and I expect that to continue on Tuesday. No court on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, so it's going to be interesting to see, full day as well on Tuesday, to see how long they do keep him on the stand. I'd imagine at least probably no less than an hour, and upwards of probably, I don't know, 2 to 3 tops, I guess, but we'll see how that goes. But it's going to be interesting. This is one of the top people here, like Jen McCabe, Brian Albert, and eventually Michael Proctor. I think you're probably looking at some of the top 5 people here. It's going to be David Yannetti asking a lot of key questions. I like what Mark Bederow said here on our show about the just picking up the pace with asking some questions that may have been sustained or objected to at the end of Friday and trying to just get back in on that again on Tuesday morning. So I think it's gonna constantly be a constant battle here with the judge. I think that's the real big problem. Is just Auntie Bev has just been sustaining so many things that should be able to be questions that the defense should ask, and I think it's really putting the shackles on the defense a little too much. And no, so someone said, you mean Jackson? No, Alan Jackson will not be in court on Tuesday. It's going to be David Yannetti.
That's right.
Yep.
Jackson will be out of town for the week. He's got another case. He's flying out of town, not coming back till a week from now, apparently.
Yeah. So, like I said, they got a big guy here. This guy's a real big piece of this puzzle. It's clearly obvious when he has to have his own attorney in court with him. It's a pretty big statement, and he looks extremely nervous. And the reason why he's extremely nervous is because it's obvious to me that he has something that he has to hide, and he is worried about going down for a lot right now. And if he was able to feel confident, there would be a lot he wouldn't be too nervous about, and he would speak boldly about that. And this is just what we saw on Friday. Was more of this. Here we go again. As we get someone on the stand, we're learning more and more and more and more about this. And it's only further confirming what we all thought, that Karen Read is innocent. And I'll go ahead and defer my time back.
So I know a lot of federal agents just through the course of professional reasons. And I met years ago when I had that case, Mike, that we spoke about, representing an FBI agent, and met just dozens and dozens of FBI agents. And even ones I don't know that I have examined in court before or met with or whatnot. And by and large, they are a very impressive lot, and there's a level of professionalism, and there is a level of preparation for testifying, competence, confidence, basically every single thing that Brian Higgins does not exhibit for a guy who has been a federal special agent for 15 years. He seems like at times like a nervous child. He seems at times sheepish. He seems at times like he's trying real hard to be polite. And as he said, I always tell the truth. Another buzzword he shouldn't have said, by the way, which could open the door. And it's fascinating to me. I would have thought, putting aside the fact that he may have some legal issues of his own and he's kind of in the middle of all of this, that for him to appear and testify the way he did and say things that don't make sense and stare at the floor at times and just look nervous and look for a lifeline at the judge. He did not look like a federal agent generally looks like. And it's, to me, it's kind of obvious why. This is a guy, before he testified, that you saw grab assing or whatever we're calling it in the bar, like some kind of clown. This is a guy who drinks whiskey, like you do anything 5 or 6 times during a day, has no problems sucking a few down here, getting in his car, sucking a few down there, going to the police station, moving police cars after he's been drinking and doing this. He's trying to have this relationship with Karen Reed, and then he gets real defensive about it to the point where he sounded foolish. He falls into the butt dial explanation. Everything about him is not credible. And the point is, he was never going to blow this case open. And I think people, if they manage their expectations, ought to look at it as, did he do any damage or did he establish anything for the prosecution? If the goal of the exercise is to call 800 witnesses who said that John O'Keefe never went in the house, I guess, although he did say that a large dark-haired man went in, which I guess could have been him. But in terms of moving their case forward affirmatively, their case, not defending the defense case before the defense has even tried to start a case, the only thing that he arguably established for them is that there were problems in the relationship between Karen and John, but it landed with, I thought, such a dud, such a non-impact, and was a waste of hours of time. It could have been done in probably 25 to 30 minutes. And what you're getting is more and more, I think, defense fuel for the fire with the butt dials, the phone records, getting rid of his phone, not answering the questions, hanging out with Chief Wiggum and Kevin Albert and Brian Albert, and doing all these things where you're more likely, after hearing from him, to think, why are all these people acting weird and doing things they shouldn't be doing? Why are all these people butt dialing in the way that they claim they are? Why are they all denying having conversations that they clearly are? And so I think it's just another example of slowly the needle continues to move towards the defense through every prosecution witness, and he has not yet even been finished. And the only reason I'm even talking about this, because I was so surprised that some of the feedback was, oh my God, this guy was a great witness for the prosecution. And that's it. The third party culprit is dead. And I just want to finish on that. The third party culprit is bonus time for the defense. There's no burden. And either way, they're still going to argue that there was a cover up and that these people were involved in something and they were covering up something. And there was no car accident, and they're covering up what really happened. You don't need the judge to bless that defense to allow that. So to me, it was another day of nothing from the prosecution, and the guy's still under cross-examination. So I don't know at what point are you going to see some actual evidence that Karen Reed may be guilty of something. And it's week 4 or 5 or whatever it is. And I've never seen anything like this. It's just stunning that this continues to go on and on with nothing affirmative happening in the sense of proving our case. I mean, it's a trial about nothing from their standpoint so far.
It's funny how it just they would think that this guy did so well when it was really just the opposite. I mean, I don't see how you could think he did well at the end when he's saying, if I did it.
Because
if I did it.
People who are judging what doing well is, they're judging demeanor. And they're not peeling the layers of the onion back and looking underneath. All they're doing is saying, well, Brian Albert didn't melt down and admit his crimes, therefore it was a good day. Same with Jennifer McCabe, although one could argue anybody with a brain would recognize what a train wreck she was. But with Higgins, he was polite.
Yeah, he didn't raise his voice. Okay.
That doesn't mean that you're telling the truth or more, as in lawyer terms, being credible or establishing anything that's helping the DA. And so the people that are kind of keeping score witness by witness, who are screaming and yelling that this case is over, she's guilty, they're taking, and you see this like with FBI lady and other people, they're taking what a witness says literally as, okay, that's fact, and it's a proven fact, and it's like they don't even do the next level of analysis, which is credibility, common sense. They just credit immediately what every prosecution witness says, and that's not how it works, and that's not how jurors are. And to just assume that the jury is that naive is foolish. I would believe that they're getting what's going on in the courtroom.
Oh, definitely. And it's so funny when they bring up the third party culprit will never be allowed. And I'm just like, what difference does it make? They already know about it because they defended Colin.
It's not
the witnesses defended Colin.
There are certain defenses that the defense has a burden of proof, and this is not one of them. It's just the right to person of committing a crime. And you can understand why courts generally don't like that, of just accusing people not on trial of committing crimes. But
the witnesses did it kind of like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like when they pointed the finger, when Allie McCabe pointed the finger, by defending Colin, she pointed the finger at him too.
She
so it's like,
but to me, even more than that is the evidence of a cover-up is overwhelming. I don't know what they're covering up, but I mean, you can't avert your eyes from these text messages, conversations, deletions, Google searches, demeanor, these impromptu meetings at police officers' homes, talking about getting gifts. And I mean, you could go on and on. So
the Alberts are like family.
This is not normal.
The Alberts are like family.
Yeah. I mean,
anybody remembers that Facebook message?
It's none of this is normal. And the idea that the jury is going to assume that this doesn't show anything at all and doesn't leave us with any questions to wonder about why this happened is problematic already. And you haven't even heard from defense experts who are going to march in and say the car accident theory doesn't make sense. And these are technical people who know a lot more than you and me and everyone else about why that is. There's a basis for that conclusion. There's going to be a basis for why that search was made at 227. There's going to be a basis for why the Apple health data, which we all have and whatever, will show when you're going up and down. It keeps track of that stuff. You can see it on your iCloud and your Apple Health app and all that. And these are like credible facts, and there's no explanation for it. And the DA's theory is going to be, well, none of it's reliable. None of the science,
none of it's true.
Every day is reliable.
Believe me, don't believe what the documentation show. Don't believe what the Google Health app. Just believe us. Kathy McDonald says, did anyone catch the comment by Brian Higgins' attorney that when he asked, do you need time to speak with your client, with the attorney, he said, I can do that in 10 seconds, and then told Brian Higgins, plead the fifth if you feel the need. Did he say that? Like, I didn't hear that end, plead the fifth if you feel.
I didn't hear that, but if he pled the fifth on the portion of related to the misuse of federal funds, is that going to look bad? Yes. But is that a huge game changer? No. Pleading the fifth on whether you told the feds anyone came in the house and now you're, that kind of stuff would be a big deal. But, the jury, I don't know if you can tell from the TV or not, but the jury doesn't hear any of that when he makes an offer of proof and asks those questions. So as far as the jury is concerned, they're going to hear Higgins say, I wasn't aware that it was a federal violation or crime to basically misuse federal resources for personal benefit. And then you can imagine that Jackson will sum up and say, is there anyone who seriously believes that a 15-year agent for the ATF had no idea that he's not allowed to do that? The better question to ask him is, is it against the federal rules to use your government car after having 37 drinks with your friends and driving around and moving vehicles and doing that? But I mean, he's got much larger credibility issues, I think, than the fact that it may have been a technical violation that his friend helped him. The real issue is, where's the phone? And you'll never know what was on his phone. And the reason is, trust me, there was nothing there.
Yeah.
Well, don't read into the fact that I switched phones the day before because Brian Albert told me. Trust me, because as he said, I always tell the truth. These witnesses, these are not good witnesses. I mean, and you're not going to see it as much as now as in summation when they get a chance to put it all together and go over this and spell it out. And that's going to be when, if you think the trial is a disadvantage now, think about Adam Lally summing up after Alan Jackson summing up. It's
Gotta be the game over.
Well, it's like man against boys.
Letdown.
I mean,
It's such a letdown.
Well, it's stylistically, but also just the skill level and connecting, I think, with a jury too. Given this kind of case, you can't just get up there and drone on for 2 hours in the summation that we proved our case, because these are all good witnesses. And, the evidence shows that Jen McCabe didn't search it at 227 and Brian Higgins didn't do this. And Brian Albert's a good guy. I mean, that's not going to get them where they need to get. They need to have something called evidence of guilt to present to the jury, as opposed to defending these witnesses. And that's all they've done for 4 weeks.
Edward made a good comment here about Higgins moving the cars. At one point he said that they left he had to leave the keys so the cars could be moved, but then he also had to move the car. Like, it's like kind of like, did you really have to go back if the keys were already there?
Look, if anybody thinks that guy was partying all night and he was tired or wanted to go home, but he figured I had to go move a couple cars after having all these drinks and do this and that, it doesn't make any sense. And the fact that he previously said I was doing administrative tasks, that's a weird way to phrase it. I mean, could it technically cover that? I don't know, but that's not how a low intelligence street agent like him talks. Okay. He's a car mover. He doesn't do administrative tasks. He moves cars. Look at him, the way he talks and acts. But he clearly was trying to give the impression that he was doing something different. The other thing is, and I don't have notes of all these witnesses in running time, but I thought way back when, in what feels like a year ago at this point, that Sergeant Good said that when he saw Higgins at 1:30 in the morning,
nothing unusual.
That he had done that before. Yeah. But what Higgins is suggesting was, I had a very specific task to do. That's a unique thing because it was a snowstorm, and something is really off with this guy.
They conflict, don't they? Conflict a lot with each other. All of
yes.
them. That's a good point you brought up.
They do, well, every now and then, but there's just something conflict that doesn't sound forthright and candid, and every one of these people is fighting over the dumbest. I mean, look, he was very specific to say, I really wasn't worried about her getting back in touch with me. I really didn't want to, I didn't want to be romantic with her, but I found her attractive and was thinking of her sexually. Like, dude, like, Really?
Yeah.
I mean, just let's call it what it is. It's the same thing, practically speaking. I didn't care. It didn't bother me that she ignored me at the bar. But then he's like, well, and all it does is tell the jury he's trying to sanitize those texts and not give the impression that he was trying to bottom O'Keefe's girlfriend, which could make a jury say, wait a minute, something's not right here. And then he did send the text, are you coming over to O'Keefe? And so when he gets defensive like that, all he's doing is in essence asking the jury to wonder, why are you so defensive over the fact that you clearly were hitting on her? She was at least receptive in the sense of the text messages. And, you feel bad because that was your friend. You shouldn't have done that. But why not just come clean with it? And he didn't. And it's just going to invite them to speculate that maybe there's something more nefarious here. And that's not good for the DA. So you ask yourself, what was the purpose of calling him and having him go over these text messages? He made it sound like these were going to be bombshell messages, and they were about as stereotypical nothing as it gets.
Absolutely. It's going to be great to see what happens on Tuesday morning, 9 a.m., full day, only day next week. And then who knows? We'll see what happens the following week, right? I mean, it's how many more weeks do you think this is going to last?
They haven't called a medical examiner. They haven't called any state police. They haven't called Berkowitz. They haven't called anyone who tested the car and did all that sort of stuff. I mean, they are disproving a defense that has not formally been offered yet, more than proving their own case. And by the way, when you see people commenting, "Oh, that's smart," that's not what you do.
Yeah.
You focus on your case, and then if you have to knock down the rest, but you need to lead the jury to think of this, that you're on the offense proving, not the defense. I mean, everything the DA is doing is a defensive posture.
Looks very weak, I got to say. I don't see how they could turn this around.
It looks terribly weak, and they have the burden of proof, and all they're doing is saying the defense has nothing. That's what they're doing.
Crazy. We'll see what happens on Tuesday. I thank you both for spending your Sunday night on a long weekend here with us. And we'll be back on Tuesday. Are you going to be able to? I know we're supposed to be doing a Canton Select Board meeting again on Tuesday night from like 7 to 9. So I would like to have you guys back. I don't know if it's going to be before or after. Like we can figure that out.
Yep.
Where are you on Tuesday night, Mark?
Tuesday's fine. Monday's Celtics. So we're on a no-fly zone. We're on a no-fly zone until the Celtics season is over. That I can't do the side watch. It's getting too getting too good. But
so will there be a game Tuesday night or not?
No.
Monday night.
After tomorrow, there'll be a hook, line, and sink to the finals, which begin June 6th. So
awesome. So Tuesday night we should be good on. We'll be able to work something else hopefully.
Sure.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you so much, gentlemen, for being here again tonight. Is there anything else that we didn't get to that we should bring up last thing before we go?
Yeah. One more thing. Free Karen Reed. She is factually innocent.
Thank you, Mazza. And anything for you, Bederow? Do you have anything? You didn't get out tonight.
No, there's always more, but at some point we got to pull the plug. So happy Memorial Day and go
Celtics, right? Go Celtics. Awesome.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys so much for being here tonight.
Take care, Mark. Take care, Mike.
Have a great weekend.
Bye.
Bye now. We're the Young Jerks. My name is Mike Crawford. We did get a bunch of super chats. I hope I got them up all on the screen. Over 57 of them. God bless you. Thank you so much. It's hard to keep up with them all. We also had I was checking this earlier, Venmo from Richard. He sent $5. He said, keep up the good work. Thank you so much. You may have noticed on our YouTube chat, I pinned a comment for the Bay State Rock podcast. It's my girlfriend's podcast. Please check that out. Subscribe to it. I posted the iTunes the other night. Tonight I'm posting their Spotify. They noticed a kind of a big bump the other night when we posted it. So thank you everyone that subscribed to my girlfriend's podcast. It's very good. I listened to it all weekend, actually. Great music. If you want to discover local music, national music, new music, classic music, maybe stuff you haven't heard in like 20 years. I love it. It's a great local music show, Bay State Rock, with Carmelita and Tez. Please subscribe. It's in the super chat. It's in the chat. It's pinned at the top. Just hit the subscribe button on Spotify for me, would you? I also put up something that's everyone's been asking us lately, is for our merchandise. You may have seen that in the comments. You can also find that on our YouTube. If you scroll all the way to the right, you'll see on the tab merchandise. You can check out all our merchandise. Sometimes we tag it on the videos, so you can buy some swag if you want. I want to thank everyone who's been supporting us, subscribing to us, checking us out. It's been unbelievable this month. The growth has been crazy. We're up over 16,000 now. Wow. 16,057. That is crazy. Thank you so much. I'm also just going to check the Cash App real quick. I don't think I saw any Cash Apps, but I just want to make sure. Nobody get mad at me. Oh, nope. My friend Lorna just sent one. Thank you so much, Lorna. She said, thank you for all of your great reporting. Thank you so much, Lorna. Lorna sent $10 on the Cash App. Thank you so much. A couple more super chats came in. Scott C. said, happy Memorial Day to all who have given the ultimate sacrifice. Thank you so much, Scott C. Great comment. I love your dog. Wicked cute dog. What is that? It almost looks like a grizzly bear. So such a kick-ass dog. I want to know about your dog now, Scott. Melissa also gave $10, and she had a coffin daffer quote just recently on May 24th at 9:43 p.m. Coffin daffer said, I will continue to stream the trial, but I plan to do a reset, staying true to what I believe the evidence shows, but watching and listening closer than ever for the truth. Wow, Coffin daffer. I don't think she's been listening for the truth. Maybe she's getting a wake-up call. It's that post, I agree. That post was like, wow, is she admitting that she's been wrong about this the whole time? I think some of them are getting worried. I mean, how can you not watch what's going on and not see? If I did it, if I destroyed the phone, she knows what that means. She knows what that means. Great comment. Thank you so much, Melissa. I want to thank everyone who's been subscribing. We had a lot of people subscribing tonight. A lot of new followers. Super chats are coming through. Thank you so much, everybody. Tomorrow night, Monday night. Not sure of the time yet. I got to talk to her. I think probably around 7. It could be later. We'll see. We're supposed to have Rita Lombardi on the show tomorrow night. Monday night, we're going to be talking about Canton, the town of Canton. What's going on in Canton with the police audit? She's also been somebody that has been in court regularly, guest to Karen Reed. So she's going to probably have some comments too about what she's seeing from the jury. I'm looking forward to having Rita back on the show tomorrow night, Monday night. Time to be announced. Please check it out tomorrow. Thank you so much, everyone who's listening. We still got 4,000 plus people here. Wow. It was over 5. Crazy amount of people tonight. All right. I'm gonna post a couple more links in the super chat. If you want merchandise, I'm gonna repost it back in there so you can. I know people are asking for the merchandise. First thing I'm going to do is post the Bay State Rock podcast on iTunes. Check that out too. I know that we put it on Spotify. Now I'm going to post the iTunes if you want to join there. And the last thing, if you want the merchandise, here it is, Spreadshop. I just posted that in the super chat too. We also have a Young Jerks YouTube, a Young Jerks Facebook group. If you want to join that, check that out. Do a search on Facebook. We have a Facebook page. Definitely subscribe there. We're on Twitch. We're on LinkedIn. We're obviously on Twitter X at the Young Jerks and YouTube. Follow us all those places if you're on those social media platforms. Thank you so much. I know some people are saying they're going to go watch Turtle Boy right now. So am I. Gonna go check out some Turtle Boy, see what he's up to tonight. Great show tonight. I want to thank attorney Mark Bederow for being here again. I also want to thank Mazz Media. I want to thank everyone who gave us a super chat tonight, everyone who gave us a donation like Lorna did on the Cash App and the Venmo, and anyone who's been here all night watching. Thank you so much tonight. All right. I think we're clear now. I think we got everything done. Oh, I want to thank a new member, Sinbad333. Thank you so much for becoming a YouTube member tonight. We had a lot of YouTube members join tonight. Thank you so much to you all. Vincent became a new YouTube member. I could go through them all. Thank you so much for joining up. Jen Shepherdson. I hope I don't miss any of these. There's a lot of comments tonight. Lena on me. We also had someone give out 5 memberships tonight. That was amazing. Charlie Lynn. Thank you so much, Charlie Lynn, for the 5 gifted memberships. Nikki became a member tonight. We had a lot of super chats. I'm going through all the super chats. I hope I didn't miss any. Maxi Rella 77 became a member tonight. We had a lot of super stickers, a lot of super chats. Thank you so much, everyone who's been supporting our show. It's like overwhelming. I can't believe I never expected this. I really didn't. But I got to say, I am proud of the show and the content that we deliver. So thank you so much for noticing it. We'll see everyone tomorrow night, hopefully, Monday night with Rita Lombardi. We're going to be streaming the Canton Select Board on Tuesday night, 7 p.m. And also, obviously, we'll be broadcasting the trial on Tuesday and hopefully having attorney Mark Bederow and Mazz also back on Tuesday. So Tuesday is going to be busy for us. We'll see you all then, and hopefully tomorrow night, Monday night, with Canton resident Rita Lombardi. We're going to be talking about the trial, what she sees in the jury, and we're also going to talk about the Canton police audit. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great night. Enjoy your Monday off. Hopefully you have a Monday off. I'm going to be working tomorrow, but it's going to be a little slower. I'll definitely be enjoying Memorial Day. I hope you all enjoy it tomorrow. Enjoy the weather. Have a great weekend. See you.